Welcome back to Health Radio. Today we have a special guest to talk about the outbreak of neural tube defects back in 2005 in Brownsville, Texas. As the story goes, 3 women within 3 days had given birth to children with neural tube defects, or NTDs. The cause of this cluster was a mystery to many epidemiologists at the time, but today we actually have here in our studio an epidemiologist that believes they have cracked the case. Dr. Smith, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and to share my findings with everyone.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about the background of this case?
Yes, of course. So it took place in Brownsville, Texas, as you mentioned, right by the border of Mexico. The town consisted of 270,524 people, 80% being Hispanic, and 40% are of low-income homes. The mothers in this case had children with spina bifida and anencephaly. Both are types of neural tube defects. 2 of these mothers had given birth, and 1 unfortunately had a miscarriage. Most of the mothers hadn't taken any prenatal vitamins and had been suffering from diabetes or were smokers.
Wow, how terrible. Could you maybe expand on what a neural tube defect is for our listeners?
Sure. A neural tube defect is a group of serious birth defects, such as spina bifida. They occur when the tissues and bones around the brain and spine don't develop properly. These occur in the 3rd or 4th week after conception, which means most women aren't even aware that they're pregnant yet.
Interesting.
Yes, but the worst part is that these families never got an answer to why their children were suffering from these neural tube defects.
Well, what is your theory, doctor?
I have a couple. The first being the lack of vitamins. These women weren't taking adequate, if any, amounts of folic acid during and prior to their pregnancy.
Well, what's the importance of folic acid?
Folic acid is extremely important for the development of an unborn baby's brain and spine. Folic acid helps your body create extra blood cells and support the growth of your baby. Taking this vitamin before and during the early stages of pregnancy can help prevent these neural tube defects. These women were of low-income families and may have had difficulty getting hold of the vitamin. The town of Brownsville, Texas has a population of 40% being of low income, which could mean a lot of the other women in the society are having the same problem and not taking the proper prenatal care. Also, after reviewing their files, I have found that 1 mother started taking vitamins during her 3rd month of pregnancy, which is too late to prevent NTDs. Another started as soon as she found out she was pregnant, but it's recommended that folic acid is taken prior to pregnancy. And lastly, the 3rd mother had taken no vitamins at all. Studies have shown that women who take 0.4 milligrams of folic acid daily prior to conception prevent birth defects by 70%. This is drastic, and these mothers just weren't careful enough.
Wow, it's so upsetting to hear about such a tragedy that can easily be prevented.
Yes, but there are other possible reasons that this trio of mothers had given birth to children with neural tube defects.
All right. Now, what is your second theory?
2 of these 3 women had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is adult onset, which could mean the mothers were overweight. Low activity level, excess fat around the waist, and poor diet are all contributing factors to type 2 diabetes. This community could tend to have the same values and lifestyle, therefore more commonly having citizens diagnosed with this disease. Babies born from women with diabetes that was not controlled during pregnancy have a higher risk of birth defects. High blood glucose levels and ketones pass through the placenta and into the baby, potentially causing issues. Also, blood glucose levels during the early weeks of pregnancy affect the baby's growing organs. Women with type 2 diabetes are 4 times more likely than women with type 1 diabetes to give birth to a stillborn baby or a baby that died at birth, and 9 times more likely than a woman without diabetes at all. Also, a high level of glucose metabolism disturbs neural tube formation. Not to mention, a laboratory experiment has shown that PAX3, which is a gene required for neural tube closure, is significantly reduced by diabetes in pregnant women. This very much so increases the chances of a baby being born with an NTD.
Very interesting. Did you have any other ideas on the reason for this outbreak?
Yes, ethnicity is my last theory. All 3 of these women were Hispanic, and NTDs are 50 to 100% more prevalent in Hispanic women compared to non-Hispanic white women. It is also common for Hispanics to eat many traditional foods such as tortillas and tamales. These foods are made from corn masa flour, which is a flour that is made from specially treated corn, which lacks folic acid fortification. As I mentioned before, folic acid is essential for the prevention of neural tube defects. There's no set reason why Hispanics seem to be more commonly giving birth to babies with neural tube defects, though some theories are an underlying genetic predisposition, lack of education on nutrition, and the large numbers of unplanned pregnancies.
If you had to choose, what would be your top theory?
Most likely my theory on folic acid. Many of the women in this area are of low-income families and may have not been able to afford the proper prenatal care they should have. Folic acid is so essential to the development of the baby's brain and spine, which is where neural tube defects such as spina bifida and anencephaly are located. In all of these cases, the mothers hadn't taken adequate amounts of folic acid or hadn't taken it properly. Folic acid should be taken prior to pregnancy to be safe, and in these cases, the women had been careless.
Interesting. Well, thank you for coming in and giving us such a great insight on this case.
No problem. I'm very happy I could come in and hopefully educate some of your listeners.